Chapter 2, Cao Dai, Basic Perspectives. Reasons for the founding of Cao Dai. For millennia, human beings have been blessed with having many forms of religion. Identical core truths are apparent through all religions, whether Hinduism, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, Christianity, Islam, or any other, even when their forms are outwardly, widely varying. Central to all religions is a supreme being, a creator of all the universe and of all living beings, one who reigns in all hearts. Religions have called the supreme being by many varied names: macrocosm by Hinduism, Yahweh by Judaism, Ahura Mazda by Zoroastrianism, Tao by Taoism, Monad by Confucianism, Allah by Islam, or simply God by a myriad of English-speaking groups. With time, teachings have become diluted and distorted. Human beings have tendencies towards materialism, and they discriminate against each other because of their outer differences between their own and others' religions, and even fight and kill each other in conflicts based on religious disputes. Universal philosophies such as Baha'i Theosophy, the Oomoto Foundation, and now many New Age teachings were created with the aim of connecting Eastern and Western wisdom. The underlying intent of Cao Dai is to lead everyone, whether aspirants, practitioners, workers, leaders, students, householders, wives, husbands, or the merely curious, to uncover the fullness of their humanity and to break free from the narrow confines of separating dogmas. How Cao Dai began. In 1926, the Supreme Being founded Cao Dai in Vietnam to demonstrate that all religions are indeed of one same origin. In founding Cao Dai, the Supreme Being taught that all religions and wisdom traditions not only have one origin, but have similar spiritual teachings. Not to discriminate against other human beings, but to love others as brothers and sisters, and to cultivate and develop one's inner self in order to find God in one's heart. The philosophy and moral code of the Cao Daist developed from unification of the most influential schools of thoughts of the day in Vietnam: Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, and Confucianism. It was in 1920, 6 years before the official founding of the Cao Dai faith, that Cao Dai, the Supreme Being, was revealed to Ngo Van Chieu, also known as Ngo Minh Chieu, who was soon to become the first disciple. Chieu, despite being the governor of Phu Quoc, a beautiful island in the Gulf of Thailand, was, aside from his gubernatorial duties, leading a simple life of quietude and wisdom. With the assistance of meditation and a mediumistic form of worship, he maintained contact with the spiritual realm. During his practices one day, a being of energy form which revealed its identity as Cao Dai appeared. From the beginning of their communication, the name Cao Dai, literally meaning high abode, was given as a symbolic name for the Supreme Being. Chieu was informed that all the world's religions should return to the one from which they originally sprang, and that this message was to be delivered to the world. Chieu asked Cao Dai for permission to worship him in a tangible form, though already he was considering using the cross symbolically for Cao Dai God. A week later, Chieu was resting in his hammock when a huge eye appeared in front of him, seemingly just a few meters away, shining like the sun and surrounded by a halo. Alarmed, he attempted to cover his eyes, yet could still feel the eye's light, which continued to intensify, beginning now to frighten him. He then realized that this apparition might be God's way of indicating the symbology for Cao Dai, a symbol that would more faithfully represent Cao Dai for their purposes of comprehension and worship. As the light grew brighter, he prayed to God, "If you want me to use this symbol to worship you, please let it vanish immediately." The light promptly faded from sight. Surprisingly, Chu was not yet completely convinced that the divine eye should represent Cao Dai until 2 days later. When this whole scenario replayed itself, again, when Chu requested that the light vanish if the divine eye should be used as a symbol for Cao Dai, it did so. Finally, he became convinced that this was the symbol God wanted as a representation. The divine, all-seeing eye, symbolic of both personal and universal consciousness. At the beginning of the Cao Dai faith, the symbol seemed strange to the Vietnamese, but was soon accepted because, after all, they knew God wasn't a man, but rather a consciousness. And what better form in which to represent God's universal love, knowingness, and guardianship than this symbol of consciousness. Chu left his island post and returned to Saigon in 1924. To those interested in self-cultivation, he taught the philosophy and esoteric practices he had learned from Cao Dai during his stay in Phu Quoc. In mid-1925, totally separate and at some distance from Ngo Van Chieu, 3 minor civil officials in Saigon, Cao Quyên Cư, Pham Công Tac, and Cao Hoài Sang, often came together to practice Spiritism. One spirit particularly was singled out for having wonderful virtues and outstanding knowledge. This spirit introduced himself as A, the first 3 letters of the Vietnamese alphabet, each with different diacritical marks. One day, when the trio Cu Tak Sang were together transmitting messages from A, one of Cu's friends, a Catholic, suggested a way to test the session. He proposed to Cu that a picture of Jesus and a cross be placed on the table. The thinking was that if the spirit were a devil or mischievous spirit, it would feel threatened by these 2 items and would not come. Cu agreed, and that the session began with St. Peter announcing himself and giving this message in Vietnamese verse. "I have been guarding the gate of heaven in the western sky and spreading the way to all humanity so that people would recognize our masters." As the sessions continued under advice, the threesome replaced their rudimentary method of communication with a tool for writing called ngọc cô or corbeille, a bec in French, the basket with a pen like a beak. On Christmas Eve 1925, finally revealed that he was the Supreme Being, coming under the name of Cao Dai to teach the way, he proclaimed. "Rejoice this day. It is the anniversary of my coming to the West to teach the way. This house will be filled with blessings. You will see more miracles which will lead you to further belief. For some time, I have used the symbol to lead you to religious life. You soon are to found a unique faith under my instructions." From that day, the Cao Dai faith began as an organized form of worship. During the same period, also separately, Lê Văn Trum, a former elected official to the Colonial Council of Cochin, China, Vietnam was called Cochin, China by the French, happened to be present at a session of Spiritism. That evening, the spirit of Li Taibat, a great Chinese scholar under the Tang dynasty, revealed the spiritual origin of Trum as an incarnation of the spirit of the immortal Li Te Quai. The spirit enjoined Trum to accept his future religious missions. From that day, the Cao Dai faith began as an organized form of worship. During the same period, also separately, Lê Văn Trum, a former elected official of the Colonial Council of Cochin, China — Vietnam was called Cochin, China by the French — happened to be present at the session of Spiritism. That evening, the spirit of Li Taibat, a great Chinese scholar under the Tang dynasty, revealed the spiritual origin of Trum as an incarnation of the spirit of the immortal Li Te Kwai. The spirit enjoined Trum to accept his future religious mission. From that day, Trum, who was an opium addict, ceased to smoke without experiencing the slightest of withdrawal symptoms. He also began to abstain from alcohol and meat. Later, under Cao Dai's direction, Ku and Tak invited Trum to join in the worshipping of Cao Dai. The group grew steadily to include Ku, Tak, Sang, Diu, Duk, Hao, and Trum. At the end of 1925, Cao Dai dispatched them to meet with Ngo Van Chiu. During the ensuing session, Cao Dai commanded that a unique faith be founded for all humanity. Impressed with the virtues of the teaching and taking their given mission seriously, these pioneers, with dedication and hard work, began to establish an ecclesiastic hierarchy. Cao Dai soon developed a governing body that bore a striking resemblance to that of the Catholic Church. One Yao Tong Pope leads the Cu Trum Dai executive body. 3 Chung Pháp legislative cardinals, one belonging to each of the 3 religious branches: Ngo, Confucianist; Tit, Buddhist; and Dao, Taoist. The Chung Pháp decide on religious laws before their promulgation. 3 Dao Su cardinal, one for each branch. They have the right to direct the disciples of God, spiritually and temporally to the right to enact laws, but only if approved first by the Yao Tong or Pope. 36 Phoi Su archbishops, 12 for each branch, with 3 Chen Phoi Su principal archbishops, who are next in the line of command and power. 72 Yao Su bishops, 24 for each branch, responsible for the education of disciples. 3,000 Yao Hu priests, divided evenly amongst the branches, preside over ritual ceremonies in the provincial temples. Yao Hu are in charge of propagating the faith. Unlimited numbers of lay son, student, priests, drawn from among the most virtuous of the Chukvik. Unlimited Chukvik sub-dignitaries, local administrative leaders at village level. Among them are unlimited Gentry Su, principal sub-dignitaries, look after the adepts in the villages. Unlimited Bo Tri Su, vice sub-dignitaries, assist in the principal sub-dignitaries. Unlimited Tong Su, legislative sub-dignitaries, in charge of legal affairs at villages. Unlimited Tindo, adepts, followers of Cao Dai. Spiritual tests, politics, expansion. Very soon, Chiu renounced his title of Yao Tong, leader of the executive body, and retired from the organization. He in fact considered his high office of Yao Tong to be something of a spiritual test. Would he become immersed in worldly powers and honors, or would he maintain focus on his inner path? He chose his solitary, meditative life of esoteric practices and continued to teach esoteric Cao Dai to anyone interested in self-cultivation for self-realization. By the order of Cao Dai, Trum was then appointed acting Yao Tong. On September 28, 1926, the religious leaders delivered an official declaration of the founding of Cao Dai. This group's form of Cao Dai now had at its heart esoteric practices which, in sensible ways, lead humanity to religious unity and subsequently to peace on earth. Indeed, if everyone on earth demonstrated true love to one another from their hearts and observed justice to do others as you would them to do you, there would be no more violence and peace would prevail. The new faith rapidly attracted the masses and unfortunately soon came to be perceived as the threat by the French government in Vietnam. The French used all possible maneuvers to weaken the quickly growing Cao Dai faith. For 50 years, despite pressures from the French government, suppression by the Viet Minh, Vietnamese Communist group, and the Catholic Diem government, the movement nevertheless grew in scope, breadth, and influence. Finally, though in 1975 the influential presence of Cao Dai was usurped in Vietnam by the victorious communist-based government and was destroyed in Cambodia by the genocidal Khmer Rouge. At the same time, however, the way was opened for awareness of Cao Dai to be spread all over the globe by the multitude of people escaping Southeast Asia during this tumultuous period. Now, as the millennium dawns, fresh impetus is created and messages of Cao Dai are given to new people in new places. Americans are beginning to discover the value of the original esoteric form of Cao Dai. In much the same way as Tibetan Buddhism has been opened to many, Cao Dai begins the process of disseminating its valuable and closely held esoteric information to the West. The first temple to open itself to the influx and the acceptance of Westerners is underway in Riverside, California. Its leaders have the desire to begin to relate their esoteric traditions in English to Americans, so that the first and main message received from the Supreme Being, that we are all one and must reunite under the one nameless divinity, can be delivered, and that a path of esoteric practice toward that end. Reunification of the self with the Supreme Being may begin. Cao Dai Cosmology. Before the creation of heavens and the universes, the cosmic ether was quiet, still, and empty, yet also churning in a state of primordial chaos, with indistinct and shadowy mixtures of purity and impurity. This is called the Tao, or pre-creation ether. In the Tao appeared a great source of divine light called Tai Kup, monad, that was the Supreme Being. The monad then emitted yin and yang, the two opposite logos, Am-Kwang or yin darkness and Yung-Kwang or yang energy. Yin is impure, heavy, dense, dark, cold, negative, inactive. Yang is pure, light, bright, warm, gentle, positive, active. Yin and yang interacted to form heavens and universes. Yang begin in the origin of the invisible spiritual part, and yin, the mother of all visible, physical manifestations. Taoism refers to this action. The Tao begets one, one begets two, two begets three, three begets 10,000 beings. 10,000 beings carry yin on their back and embrace yang in their front, blending these two vital breaths to attain harmony. Regarding the formation of the universe, Cao Dai gave this following message. After creating the universe, I divided my spirit, and with it made all creatures, plants, and materials. Everything in this universe comes from my spirit and therefore has a life. Where there is life, there is myself. Even in materials and plants, I am each of you, and you are me. All things in this universe are formed by yin and yang. The proportion of yin and yang dictates the essentials of each dimension. The more yang, the more heavenly the realm. A dimension which has a higher proportion of yang would be lighter, brighter, more beautiful, and attract more advanced souls. A dimension which has a higher proportion of yin would be heavier, darker, more burdensome, and would attract less developed, more cruel souls, and could even give the experience of hell. Spirituality. Everything in the universe shares a part of the Supreme Being's spirit, which can be called consciousness or conscience, spirit or soul. Physically, everything in the universe has a visible body, a mixture of yin and yang, a dance of electrons and protons in atoms. The basic common elements in everything: minerals, plants, animals, humans. Human beings inherited yin from the Mother Goddess and yang from the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being's yang is called Dai Lin Kuang, the Great Sacred Light. The soul of human being is called Tiu Lin Kuang, the Little Sacred Light, which comes from the Supreme Being. The yang of the Supreme Being and the yang in humans is the same. Invisible, absolutely pure, absolutely good, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, without beginning, without end. In humans, it can be called consciousness. Pure consciousness is clothed by the physical, visible aspects of the human. This visible part is a mixture of yin and yang and includes the din, the physical body, the qi, the emotions. If tin and qi have a higher proportion of yang, such as when humans have positive emotions, a person becomes lighter, purer, happier, and is able to dwell in the higher and happier dimension. If tin and qi have more yin, as when humans indulge more negative emotions, a person encounters more density, less purity, less happiness, and dwells in lower, heavier, darker, colder dimensions. Tin and qi are like coats over the self. The more negative emotions one has, the more coats one wears. The denser one is, the heavier one feels, and the more one settles into the lower dimensions. In summary, there is oneness between the Supreme Being, the universe, human beings and everything, animate and inanimate. The only difference is that the Supreme Being is absolutely pure, absolutely good, absolutely yang. Human beings, notwithstanding the spiritual elements from the Supreme Being, which is noted as absolutely pure and absolutely good, have a physical body and emotions which are a mixture of yin and yang. Humans can cultivate themselves in order to become increasingly yang, refined, purer, and closer to the Supreme Being. In Cao Dai, this refining comes as a product of meditation, vegetarianism, moral practices, and prayer, all of which gradually raise the vibrational level of yang within. Oneness of God, humans, and universe. Among Eastern philosophies, this point stands out. The sky, the earth, and 10,000 things are of one same constitution. Thiên địa vạn vật đồng nhất thể. 10,000 things symbolically refers to the multitude of diverse forms of matter in the universe. A stunning assertion, but what does it really mean? What does it imply? In this universe, all things are comprised of atoms, but a few situations would show how the sky, the earth, and all the things in the universe can be of one same nature. A pedestrian and his dog walk wearily in the heat looking for a respite, for shade and water, A plant by the road wilts under the same fierce sun. Water would be the savior for the man, the dog, and the plant. Without water under the heat, man, animal, plant will dehydrate, eventually dying and decomposing back into Earth's elements. It appears if the stones underfoot are unimpaired. But if stones bake at high enough temperatures, they also dehydrate and begin a decomposition process. Thus the same effect from excessive heat is observed for the man, the animal, the plants, and eventually the stone. If they don't have the same basic constitution, how is it that a common result occurs? Stones appear rock solid on a physical plane. Trees, animals, and human bodies also appear solid to varying degrees, yet each of them, and the stone too, contain much more empty space between their spinning electrons than they contain solid matter. All have more empty space within them than density or solid particles. Basically, are all energy. Regarding another aspect of life, a common law governs reproduction. A marigold plant gives seeds which is placed in appropriate conditions will produce marigold plants. A dog after conceiving will give birth to a dog. A similar law applies to the human being. The same rule of specific continuation of the line applies whether human, animal, or plant. This common law of physical existence is reminiscent of this saying from the ancient China. Ta cũng muôn vật đồng sinh, ta và muôn vật sự tình chẳng hai. Myself and 10,000 things are born together. Myself and 10,000 things bear together the same condition. 10,000 things on this earth are a part of the universe of its smooth functioning. Lives on this earth rely on the sun and on the punctuality of the earth revolving around the sun to receive the narrow range of light and temperature needed to sustain life as it is. Physical bodies of all lives on earth are part of the body and life of the universe. After death, physical bodies turn to dust, also a part of the universe. As to the emotional part of human nature, day-to-day life with its wheel of fortune, ups and downs, normally creates similar responses among all mortals. In a theater, most people watching a play feel the same emotions and thus laugh or cry at the same moment. As to the spiritual, God has granted mortals and everything in the cosmos a part of His Spirit. And among humans the Spirit is shared, which is why they have similar basic principles and the same conscience. This is why the world's great wisdom traditions have a common central essence and why, for example, the Latin motto on the US dollar bill, E pluribus unum, would have a counterpart in Vietnamese. Nhất bổng tân vân thứ quy nhất bổng. From one emanate many, from many emanates one. Many times during this manifestation, the Supreme Being taught, I, your master, am you, and you, my children, are me. Or I divided my spirit to create materials, plants, animals, and humans. I am the father of all lives. Where there is life, there is me. This teaching constitutes the most important principle of Cao Dai and becomes the ultimate goal of all mortals on this earth, to return to complete oneness with the Supreme Being. Cao Dai without being Cao Dai is true Cao Dai. There is a little mystery here, a seeming paradox, with the following messages from Cao Dai. Nyingdang Buddha is me, Sakya Muni is me, Taitu Ngung Tim is me. Who is Cao Dai? If Cao Dai faith is only Cao Dai, a separate, refined entity, it would not truly be Cao Dai as it is meant to be. If Cao Dai is not only Cao Dai but encompasses Buddhism or Taoism or Confucianism or Christianity or any other path toward God, then it is truly Cao Dai. Cao Dai does not aim to convert the followers to any path but wishes to unite all traditions of faiths in the understanding that all are of one same core principle. Tolerance between the various religions would put an end to the religious strife which sadly has led to the majority of wars in the world. Cao Dai succeeded early on in unifying the forces and belief structure of the existing religions in the East. Cao Dai overseas is now realizing an evolved role in the advent of the 21st century, that of being a member of the continually growing interfaith community, no longer concentrating solely on the separate definitions of Cao Dai itself and those facts which make it a unique faith in its own right. Instead, Cao Dai overseas seeks to cross bridges and makes bonds which will unite people. Differences of religious practice and belief are regarded as unimportant when considered the overall similarity and unity of spiritual feelings towards our one and united source. Cao Dai without being Cao Dai is the true Cao Dai, foresees a time when all will be free of the struggles, boundaries, and divisions between one religion and another. What changes is the view that vanishes is the animosity between religions, not the myriad ways of honoring the Creator. Employing spiritual messages. In Cao Dai spiritual practice, spiritual messages are often received in the form of verses. Received prayers are almost always in verses. Messages used as educational information are either verse or prose. What follows are examples of some of the types of messages received. Multitudes have not yet been translated into English, and more are being received regularly. Cao Dai is a thriving, growing, ever-expanding theology blessed with the continuing wisdom bestowed by these spiritual verses and prose. The 5 vows. We pray that the wisdom of the great Tao be widely spread on earth. May peaceful existence manifest for all creatures of nature's birth. May all humanity be redeemed, and our whole world know peace. And may the places we meet to worship you be granted safety's lease. Prayers before sleep. All material desires consume me by day, leading my mind and my actions astray. Holy One, I am prostrating here to you, that your lovingness will cause my mind to stay focused and clear on your divinity, taking no action towards infidelity. During my sleep, when my soul is at rest, superior spirits, please guide me to what is best. Toward my home in your sacred nirvana I yearn, so teach me the lessons which I need to learn. Prayers before eating. Foremost to the multitude of living beings, to eat is the most necessary of things. Cereals the Creator has brought to this need, and gives to his children upon which to feed. Our deep thanks go to Sen Nom King, who taught in the ways of plants upbringing. Gratefully, I vow to borrow this physical body of man in use for the spiritual quest of the eternal land. Voyager's Prayer. For this is but the road of life. Along its way may we be saved. By faith and teachings we embrace. Though we are as foam tossed on the wave, I find my trustfulness oft shaken. So I retreat from early tide, but with such happenstance is purification along the soul's journey toward Cao Dai. I realize that from the place of refuge in my soul, and repent for harm I have caused to others. May the Almighty know of my good faith and my dedication to serve my brothers as I brave the thorns and brambles. May I set out safe and joyous and return sane. And may the Almighty grant me protection as I pass along heaven's path and life's road the same. Teachings. entering divine realms. Though arduous it may be to enter divine realms, hesitate not to surpass your human kin. Keep a peaceful heart to turn negative to positive, and keep a plain mindset as your place to begin. Keep practicing your miracles, and slowly, day by day, your tireless devotion will keep you from the fray. The wicked flaunt their wickedness, but the pure remain pure, practicing triple cultivation to assure their spirit's cure. Teachings: cultivating heart. And then you will see the outcome of the actions you have taken. Yet complain not, for life is fraught with opportunity forsaken. In the cultivation of your heart, make wisdom's sharp blade steady, for cutting through the karma you have honed to make you ready. Your suffering is fully seen in the eye of my compassion. Now hasten ye to rise and flee toward reunion in my heaven. And whoever has despised you, my gentle female devotee, has disregarded me, and so will see these deeds remorse one day. Teachings: perseverance and sincerity in self-cultivation. I, your master, grant you, the most sincere disciples, the Chi. To be pure, your true self should emanate bright energy. To help others, heed closely the Tao's examination. Have no confusion, as you will find complete illumination. As the moon shines brightly in the clear night, in cultivating self, child, keep your heart and mind aright. Be completely patient with your hardships year by year. The blessings of your growth shall wipe clean your fears. Child, you were taught to have compassion, and blessed for your sincerity of cultivation. Teihuin Quan Qiu crown chakra will open through the clarity of your heart, which has been replete with my blessings from the start. Tending your virtues and having mind toward cultivation, willing to pray to superior spirits in your contemplation, they bless and grant you vision to their emanations bright. Your name will be sanctified as a gentle being's birthright. Being conscientious of the test of the flower convention day, you'll be elated to discover where your predestiny has lain. But for now, focus only on the growth of mind and virtue. Thereby your home in the divine abode will be well reserved for you. Give deep thought to all that I have said. Let your conscience give your reply. Meanwhile, my blessings all flow out to you as you are held in my own eye.